Let's get one thing clear right from the start. Discipline is not something you magically find one day. It's not a personality trait, and it's not reserved for a special group of people. Discipline is a decision you make again and again every single day. And whether you realize it or not, you're already making that decision daily. You're either choosing actions that build your future, or you're choosing comfort that quietly steals it. Most people think discipline is about restriction, about saying no to everything fun or easy. That's not true. Discipline is about direction. It's about deciding where your life is going and aligning your daily choices with that direction. Every day you wake up at a crossroads. The choices might look small: getting up when the alarm rings, doing the work when no one is forcing you, controlling impulses instead of giving in. But those small choices decide everything. Your future doesn't change in big dramatic moments. It changes in ordinary ones. The reason discipline feels so difficult is because it asks you to delay gratification. It asks you to trade short-term comfort for long-term growth. Your mind doesn't like that. Your mind wants what feels good now. Rest now, scroll now, quit now. Discipline is the voice that says, not now, later. And every time you listen to that voice, you strengthen it. Every time you ignore it, it weakens. This isn't about willpower. It's about training. People often wait for motivation to act, but motivation is unreliable. Some days it shows up and some days it doesn't. Discipline doesn't wait for the right mood. It moves even when the mood is wrong. And that's what makes it powerful. When you rely on discipline, you stop being controlled by how you feel. You become guided by who you want to become. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If you don't discipline yourself, life will do it for you. Missed opportunities, financial stress, health problems, regret. Life always collects its payment. The question is whether you pay upfront with effort or later with pain. Discipline is the cheaper price, but only if you're willing to pay it daily. Discipline also isn't about being perfect. You will slip. You will have days where you fail yourself. That's part of the process. The disciplined person isn't the one who never fails. It's the one who doesn't quit when failure happens. Discipline means you don't let one bad decision turn into a bad week, or one bad week turn into a bad year. You correct quickly. You take responsibility. You move forward. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, something powerful happens inside you. You build self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. People who lack confidence usually aren't lacking talent. They're lacking trust in themselves because they've broken too many promises to themselves. Discipline repairs that, one kept promise at a time. Think about the life you want in the future. The respect, the freedom, the stability. None of it appears without discipline. That future version of you is depending on the decisions you make today. When you skip the work, you're not just skipping a task. You're letting your future self down. When you show up, even when it's hard, you're investing in a version of yourself that hasn't arrived yet. Discipline doesn't always feel good, but regret always feels worse. Regret lingers. It asks painful questions late at night. What if I had tried harder? Why did I waste so much time? Discipline asks hard questions now, so you don't have to answer painful ones later. The pain of discipline is temporary. The pain of regret can last a lifetime. This is why discipline must be a daily decision. Not a New Year promise, not a one-time burst of effort, a daily commitment. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits, and habits are built by repeated choices, not grand intentions. You don't need to overhaul your entire life today, you just need to make one disciplined choice and then repeat it tomorrow. Start small, but stay consistent. Discipline compounds faster than motivation ever will. What feels difficult now becomes automatic later. At some point, you stop arguing with yourself. You stop negotiating. You stop asking whether you should do the work. You already decided. That's when life starts to change. When discipline becomes part of your identity, not just something you try to do. So decide today, not emotionally, not temporarily. Decide that you will choose discipline even when it's uncomfortable, even when no one is watching, even when progress is slow. Because the day you stop choosing discipline is the day regret starts choosing for you. Every choice you make comes down to this simple trade: short-term pain or long-term regret. Most people don't see it in the moment because comfort is persuasive. It feels harmless. It feels deserved. It feels like relief. But comfort today has a cost tomorrow. And that cost shows up quietly at first. Missed progress, lost confidence, a future that looks suspiciously like the past. Discipline hurts now, but regret hurts later, and regret hurts deeper. Short-term pain is honest. It tells you exactly what you're paying and why. Waking up early when you're tired, doing the work when you'd rather stop, saying no when something tempting pulls at you. That pain is sharp but brief. It passes. Long-term regret is different. It lingers. It asks questions you can't answer. It shows up years later when you realize you knew better but chose easier. That's a heavier weight to carry. The problem isn't that people choose comfort. It's that they underestimate the bill. Comfort disguises itself as rest, as balance, as self-care. And sometimes those things are real. But often comfort is just avoidance with a friendly label. It's skipping the work and telling yourself you'll make up for it later. It's delaying the decision because facing it feels uncomfortable. And every delay feels small until you stack them up and realize how much time is gone. Short-term pain builds something inside you. It builds tolerance for discomfort. It builds respect for yourself. It builds proof. When you do something hard on purpose, you send a message to your mind. I can handle this. That message compounds. It changes how you respond to challenges. You stop panicking. You stop avoiding. You move forward. Long-term regret does the opposite. It weakens your trust in yourself. It reminds you of moments you chose not to act, and that memory becomes a quiet voice that says, you always do this. People often say they don't want to be miserable now, but they don't realize they're choosing a different kind of misery later. The misery of wondering what could have been. The misery of watching others pass you by while you tell yourself stories about timing and luck. The misery of knowing the effort would have been hard, but doable. Discipline asks you to feel uncomfortable now so you don't have to live uncomfortable later. There's a lie that discipline steals your happiness. The truth is, undisciplined living steals your peace. It keeps you in a constant state of reaction, chasing relief, cleaning up consequences, feeling behind. Discipline creates structure. Structure creates freedom. When you choose the harder option consistently, you buy options for the future. You buy time. You buy confidence. You buy control. Short-term pain also sharpens your priorities. When things are easy, it's hard to tell what matters. When you choose effort, you're forced to decide what's worth it. That clarity is powerful. It keeps you from wasting energy on things that don't move you forward. Long-term regret comes from living without that clarity, saying yes to too much, committing to too little, drifting instead of deciding. Most people don't regret trying and failing. They regret not trying at all. They regret staying silent, staying still, staying safe. The pain of effort fades. The pain of inaction accumulates. And it accumulates slowly enough that you don't notice until it's heavy. By then, changing feels harder, not because it is, but because you've practiced avoidance for too long. Short-term pain teaches you patience. You learn that progress doesn't always feel rewarding, that some days are just work, that consistency is more important than excitement. Those lessons protect you later when life demands endurance. Long-term regret leaves you unprepared. It makes every challenge feel overwhelming because you haven't built the habit of pushing through. There's also pride on the other side of short-term pain. Quiet pride, the kind that doesn't need to be announced. You know what you did. You know you didn't quit. That pride steadies you. It becomes a reference point when things get hard again. Regret gives you the opposite reference point, a memory of backing down. That makes the next challenge feel even heavier. Choosing discipline now doesn't guarantee immediate results. That's part of the pain. You work without applause. You improve without validation. You invest without seeing returns right away. But that investment compounds. Long-term regret compounds too, just in the wrong direction. Missed days become missed months. Missed months become missed years. And one day you wake up realizing the window you had is smaller than it used to be. Short-term pain asks for courage. Long-term regret demands acceptance. Courage is uncomfortable, but it's active. Acceptance of regret is passive, and it drains you slowly. One builds you, the other diminishes you. Every time you choose the harder path, you practice courage. Every time you choose comfort, you practice avoidance. Practice becomes preference. Preference becomes identity. You don't need to choose pain in everything. This isn't about suffering for no reason. It's about choosing meaningful discomfort over meaningless ease. The discomfort of growth over the ease of stagnation. The pain of discipline over the ache of regret. When you frame it that way, the choice becomes clearer. So when you're standing at that familiar crossroads, do it now or do it later. Remember that later always charges interest. Do the hard thing while the cost is small. Pay the price up front in effort and focus and consistency. Because the alternative isn't comfort forever. It's regret that lasts much longer than the pain you try to avoid. Your future is not shaped by one dramatic decision or a single breakthrough moment. It's shaped quietly, patiently, by what you do every day, the habits you repeat when no one is paying attention, the routines you fall back on when life gets busy, the small choices that feel insignificant in the moment but end up deciding everything. People love to talk about destiny, luck, or timing, but the truth is simpler and more uncomfortable. Your daily habits are building your future, whether you're aware of it or not. Every habit is a vote for the life you're going to live. When you choose discipline in small moments, you're voting for strength, stability, and progress. When you choose avoidance, you're voting for delay, frustration, and regret. These votes don't cancel each other out instantly. They stack. One good habit won't fix everything, and one bad habit won't destroy everything. But repeated daily, they compound in one direction. Over time, the direction becomes hard to ignore. This is why change feels slow at first. You don't see the results immediately, so you question whether the effort is worth it. Your old habits still have momentum. They've been practiced for years. Your new habits are just beginning. They're weak, fragile, and easy to abandon. Most people quit here not because the habits don't work, but because they don't work fast enough. They confuse delay with failure. Daily habits don't ask for intensity. They ask for consistency. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. That idea overwhelms people and keeps them sane. If your surroundings make bad habits easy and good habits hard, discipline becomes a constant battle. That's not weakness, it's reality. Part of disciplining yourself is designing your environment to support your future. Remove distractions, create routines, set up systems that make the right choice easier than the wrong one. Small adjustments in your environment can produce massive changes in behavior. Daily habits also teach patience. You learn how to work without immediate rewards. You learn how to trust the process even when progress is invisible. That patience protects you from impulsive decisions later. People who lack patience chase shortcuts, and shortcuts usually lead straight to regret. People who respect the process build something that lasts. It's easy to underestimate the power of one day. One day doesn't look like much, but your life is made of days. How you spend them becomes how you spend your years. You don't wake up one morning disciplined or undisciplined. You arrive there through repetition. Every day you practice showing up, it becomes more natural. Every day you practice avoiding effort, that becomes your default. Your habits don't care about your intentions. They respond to action. You can want change deeply and still live the same life if your habits don't change. That's why self-honesty matters. Look at your routines, not your plans. Your routines are telling the truth about where you're headed. The good news is this: habits can be changed slowly, deliberately, without drama. You don't need perfection. You need persistence. Miss a day, correct quickly. Don't turn one mistake into an excuse to stop. Habits grow stronger through recovery, not avoidance. Over time, the effort shifts. What once felt hard becomes normal. What once required discipline becomes automatic. And that's when the future you've been working toward starts to feel inevitable, not because of luck, but because of the habits you chose to repeat. So pay attention to what you do today, not tomorrow, not someday, today, because today is quietly becoming your future. Most people wait to feel ready before they act. They wait for the spark, the rush, the emotional high that makes everything feel possible. That feeling has a name: motivation. And the problem with motivation is that it comes and goes whenever it wants. It shows up when conditions are perfect and disappears the moment things get uncomfortable. If your progress depends on motivation, then your progress will always be fragile. Motivation is a feeling. Discipline is a decision. Feelings are unstable by nature. Decisions create structure. You can't build a strong life on something that changes with your mood. Some days you'll wake up inspired, focused, and energized. Other days you'll feel tired, bored, stressed, or discouraged. Discipline is what allows you to move forward on both days. It doesn't ask how you feel. It asks what needs to be done. This is where many people get confused. They think discipline means being harsh or robotic, like you have to suppress every emotion. That's not true. Discipline simply means you don't let emotions run the show. You acknowledge how you feel, and then you act in alignment with your long-term goals instead of your short-term comfort. You don't deny your feelings. You just don't obey them blindly. Motivation is great for starting things. Discipline is what finishes them. Motivation might get you into the gym once. Discipline gets you there when it's raining, when you're sore, when no one is watching. Motivation might push you to work hard for a week. Discipline keeps you working when progress feels slow and praise is gone. Every meaningful achievement you admire in others is built on discipline, not inspiration. Think about how dangerous it is to rely on motivation. It gives you an excuse to quit that feels reasonable. I'm just not feeling it today. That sounds harmless, but repeated over time, it becomes a habit of inconsistency. And inconsistency is the enemy of growth. Discipline removes negotiation. When something is non-negotiable, it gets done. That clarity saves you from constant internal debates that drain your energy. Discipline is what turns ordinary people into reliable people. It creates trust with yourself. When you say you'll do something and you actually do it, especially on the days you don't feel like it, you build self-respect. That self-respect fuels confidence. Not the loud, fake kind, but the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can depend on yourself. Feelings are reactive. Discipline is proactive. Feelings respond to the environment. Discipline creates the environment. When you wait for motivation, you're reacting to your mood. When you rely on discipline, you're setting standards. Standards are powerful because they don't change based on circumstances. They define who you are even when no one is watching. There will be days when discipline feels heavy. That's normal. Those days don't mean you're doing something wrong. They mean you're growing. Growth requires friction. If everything feels easy, you're probably not stretching beyond what's familiar. Discipline teaches you how to work through resistance instead of running from it. And that skill applies to every area of life. The irony is that discipline often creates motivation after the action, not before it. You start moving and the energy follows. You begin to work and the clarity appears. Waiting for motivation puts the sequence backward. Action first, feeling later. Once you understand this, you stop waiting and start leading yourself forward. Discipline also protects you from your future regrets. Motivation lives in the present moment. Discipline lives in the future. Discipline asks, what will this choice cost me later? It sees beyond immediate pleasure and temporary relief. It's the voice that reminds you that comfort now can become pain later, and effort now can become freedom later. Permanent progress comes from systems, not moods. Discipline creates systems, wake-up routines, work schedules, non-negotiable habits. These systems carry you when motivation disappears. They turn effort into structure, and structure into momentum. Momentum is what makes consistency feel natural over time. People often say they want freedom, but avoid discipline. That's backwards. Discipline is the path to freedom. Without it, you're controlled by impulses, distractions, and emotions. With it, you control your time, your energy, and your direction. That control doesn't trap you, it liberates you. Discipline doesn't make you less human, it makes you more intentional. You stop being pushed around by every feeling and start choosing who you want to become. And over time, those choices stack into a life you don't have to escape from. So when motivation fades, and it will, don't panic. That's not the signal to stop. That's the signal to rely on discipline. Because motivation is temporary, but discipline is what stays. Excuses sound harmless at first. They don't feel dangerous. They feel reasonable, even protective. They help you explain why you didn't start, why you stopped early, why today just wasn't the right day. And that's exactly why they're so powerful. Excuses don't attack you loudly, they whisper. They convince you that delay is smart, that avoidance is temporary, that quitting this time doesn't really count. But every excuse you accept quietly trains you to betray your own potential. And excuses for just about the moment. It's a pattern. The first time you use one, it feels like an exception. The second time, it feels justified. The third time, it becomes normal. And before you realize it, excuses are no longer something you use. They're something you live by. They shape your standards, lower your expectations, and slowly redefine what you believe is possible for you. The problem isn't that life is hard. Life has always been hard. The problem is that excuses give you a way to stay comfortable while pretending you still care about growth. They allow you to hold on to the identity of someone who wants more without doing the work required to become that person. That gap between who you say you want to be and how you actually live is where frustration, guilt, and regret are born. Excuses shift responsibility away from where the power actually is. They blame time, circumstances, other people, bad luck, lack of resources, lack of support. And sometimes those things are real challenges. But excuses turn challenges into permanent barriers. They convince you that because conditions aren't perfect, effort isn't required. Discipline says the opposite. Conditions don't have to be perfect for progress to happen. Every excuse has a cost. It costs momentum. It costs confidence. It costs trust in yourself. Each time you let yourself off the hook, you weaken the muscle of accountability. And just like any muscle, what you don't use gets weaker. Over time, even small commitments start to feel heavy because you've trained yourself to escape discomfort instead of facing it. Excuses are seductive because they protect your ego. They allow you to fail without admitting weakness. Instead of saying, I didn't do it because I was afraid, you say, I didn't have time. Instead of saying, I lack discipline, you say, I wasn't in the right headspace. These stories make failure feel less painful in the short term, but they steal growth in the long term. Growth requires honesty, and excuses block honesty. There's a dangerous comfort in knowing why you didn't try. It feels safer than risking effort and still failing. But safety is not the goal. Progress is. And progress demands that you take responsibility even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. Excuses keep you stuck in analysis and explanation. Discipline moves you into action. Pay attention to how excuses show up in your life. They often sound logical. They often come dressed as self-care, realism, or patience. But discipline asks a simple question: is this helping me move forward, or is it helping me stay the same? That question cuts through noise. It forces clarity. The truth is, successful people don't have fewer excuses available to them. They just refuse to use them. They feel tired too. They doubt themselves too. They face setbacks, criticism, and fear. The difference is not their circumstances, it's their standards. Their standard is execution, not explanation. Excuses delay pain, but they multiply regret. Discipline accepts pain early to avoid regret later. That's the trade-off. There's no option without discomfort. You either choose the discomfort of effort or the discomfort of knowing you didn't live up to what you were capable of. One builds strength. The other builds bitterness. When you remove excuses, something uncomfortable happens at first. You're left alone with responsibility. There's no one else to blame. No story to hide behind. And that can feel heavy, but it's also empowering. Because the moment you accept responsibility is the moment you regain control. Control over your actions, control over your habits, control over your direction. Excuses keep you small by keeping expectations low. Discipline raises expectations, not unrealistically, but intentionally. It says, I will do what I said I would do, even when it's inconvenient. That promise, kept repeatedly, transforms your self-image. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. There will be days when excuses feel louder than discipline, days when quitting sounds logical and effort feels pointless. Those days are tests, not tests of talent, but tests of character. Passing them doesn't require perfection. It requires refusal. Refusal to negotiate with the voice that wants comfort more than growth. Excuses don't disappear overnight. They weaken as discipline strengthens. Each time you choose action over explanation, you break the pattern. Each time you show up despite discomfort, you reclaim a piece of your future. Over time, excuses lose their authority. They stop sounding convincing because you've proven to yourself that you don't need them. At the end of the day, Excuses offer relief, but discipline offers results. Excuses explain the past. Discipline creates the future. And the future doesn't care why you didn't try. It only reflects what you did. So stop feeding the enemy that feels familiar. Stop protecting the habits that are holding you back, because every excuse you drop is a step closer to the life you say you want. People often think freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want. No rules, no limits, no pressure. But if you look closely at lives that fall apart, you'll notice something interesting. They're usually built on that exact definition of freedom. Impulse-driven choices, short-term pleasure, constant distraction. What looks like freedom on the surface slowly turns into chaos, stress, and regret. Real freedom doesn't come from having no control. It comes from having self-control. When you lack self-control, you're not free. You're reactive. Your mood decides your actions. Your cravings decide your schedule. Your distractions decide your priorities. That's not freedom. That's being controlled by whatever is loudest in the moment. Self-control flips that dynamic. It puts you back in the driver's seat. You decide what matters. You decide what gets your energy. You decide what kind of future you're building. Self-control is not about restriction for the sake of restriction. It's about alignment. It's choosing actions that support the life you want instead of sabotaging it. Every time you resist a distraction, delay gratification, or follow through on a commitment, you're practicing freedom. You're proving that your future matters more than your impulse. Without self-control, time disappears. Hours vanish into scrolling, overthinking, or avoidance. With self-control, time becomes a resource you can direct. That's why disciplined people often seem to have more time. They don't. They just waste less of it. They say no more often, and because of that, their yeses carry more power. Self-control also creates financial freedom. Impulse spending feels good for a moment, but it quietly builds stress. Discipline in money choices doesn't feel exciting, but it creates options. Options to rest, to invest, to move, to choose work instead of being trapped by it. Every controlled decision adds breathing room to your life. Emotionally, self-control is just as powerful. It keeps you from reacting in ways you'll regret. It gives you space between feeling and action. In that space, wisdom lies. You can still feel anger, fear, disappointment, but you don't let those emotions dictate behavior that damages relationships or self-respect. That restraint is not weakness, it's strength. There's a lie that self-control kills joy. In reality, it protects joy. When your life is stable, your habits are aligned, and your direction is clear, enjoyment becomes deeper. You're not constantly recovering from bad decisions. You're not living in cycles of guilt and repair. Discipline removes chaos, and in that clarity, joy has room to grow. Self-control also builds confidence in a way nothing else can. Not confidence from praise or comparison, but confidence from integrity. You know who you are because you act in alignment with your values. You trust yourself because you keep your word to yourself. That kind of confidence is unshakable. People who master self-control don't feel controlled by others. They don't need constant validation. They don't chase approval. Their standards guide them. That independence is freedom at the highest level. You stop outsourcing your worth to opinions and start anchoring it in your actions. It's important to understand that self-control is a skill, not a personality trait. You're not born with it or without it. You build it through repetition. Small acts of restraint, small acts of follow-through. Each one strengthens the muscle. And like any muscle, it grows with use and weakens with neglect. Self-control makes hard things easier over time. The first time you resist a habit, it feels heavy. The 10th time, it feels manageable. The 100th time, it feels normal. That's freedom when effort turns into identity, when discipline becomes who you are, not something you force. There will be moments when self-control feels like sacrifice. But what you're really sacrificing is the future pain of regret. You're trading immediate comfort for long-term peace. That trade is always worth it, even when it doesn't feel like it in the moment. Look at the areas of your life where you feel stuck. Chances are self-control is missing there. Not because you're weak, but because discipline hasn't been practiced consistently. The solution isn't self-criticism, it's training. Choose one area, one habit, one decision you'll control today. That's how freedom starts. Freedom isn't given, it's built. It's built through the decisions you make when no one is watching, through restraint when distraction calls, through consistency when quitting feels easier. And the more control you gain over yourself, the less control the world has over you. There comes a moment in every serious life when the illusion finally breaks. The illusion that someone is going to show up and fix things for you. That a perfect opportunity, a powerful connection, or a sudden burst of luck will arrive and carry you forward. For a long time, it's comforting to believe that. It softens the pressure, it lets you wait, but waiting quietly becomes wasting wet. And you realize no one is coming to save you. This is not a harsh truth meant to discourage you, it's a freeing one. Because the moment you stop waiting for rescue is the moment you reclaim your power. Responsibility doesn't trap you, it unlocks you. As long as you believe your life is in someone else's hands, you'll live reactively. But when you accept that your future is your responsibility, your actions start to matter in a new way. Responsibility is the dividing line between wishful thinking and real progress. It's easy to talk about what should change. It's harder to ask what you need to change. That question removes comfort. It doesn't allow excuses. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It demands ownership, and ownership is where discipline is born. Most people avoid responsibility because they confuse it with blame. Responsibility isn't about shaming yourself for the past. It's about taking control of the present. You can acknowledge that some things weren't fair, that some circumstances were difficult, and still decide that from this point forward, your choices will define you. That's not denial, that's strength. When you stop expecting someone else to save you, your standards rise. You stop doing things halfway. You stop relying on motivation from others. You stop needing permission to take your life seriously. That internal shift changes everything. You move differently, you speak differently, you make decisions with more weight because you understand the consequences land on you. Waiting for rescue often looks like procrastination dressed up as preparation. I just need more time. I just need more information. I just need the right support. Those statements feel productive, but they delay action. Responsibility cuts through that delay. It says, start with what you have, where you are. Progress doesn't need perfect conditions, it needs commitment. Taking responsibility also clarifies priorities. When you know no one is coming, distractions lose their appeal. You stop wasting energy on things that don't move you forward. You realize your time is valuable because it's yours to use or waste. That awareness creates urgency, not panic, but purpose. Responsibility forces honesty. You can't hide behind circumstances anymore. You have to face your habits, your decisions, your patterns. That can be uncomfortable, but it's also empowering. Because once you see the truth clearly, you can change it deliberately. Discipline thrives in clarity. There's a deep confidence that comes from self-reliance. Not arrogance, not isolation, but trust. Trust that you will show up. Trust that you'll handle challenges instead of avoiding them. Trust that even if you fail, you'll learn and keep moving. That trust is built one responsible decision at a time. People often mistake asking for help as avoiding responsibility. That's not the same thing. Responsibility means you own the outcome, even if you get support along the way. You don't outsource your effort. You don't hand off your discipline. You take the lead in your own life. The world respects people who take responsibility, not because they're perfect, but because they're dependable. They don't complain without acting. They don't blame without adjusting. They adapt. That adaptability is a form of power. When responsibility becomes your default, excuses lose their grip. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what am I going to do about it? That shift turns obstacles into challenges and challenges into growth. It changes your relationship with difficulty. Difficulty becomes training, not punishment. No one coming to save you doesn't mean you're alone. It means you're capable. It means you have more influence over your life than you were taught to believe. It means your effort matters. Your discipline matters. Your consistency matters. The day you accept full responsibility, day you stop waiting and start building. And once you start building, you don't need saving anymore. There are two kinds of weight you carry through life. One is the weight of discipline, and the other is the weight of regret. At first glance, discipline feels heavier. It asks for effort. It asks for consistency. It asks you to say no when yes would feel easier. Regret, on the other hand, feels light in the moment. It doesn't demand anything right away. It just asks you to delay, to avoid, to choose comfort now. But over time, those weights switch places. Discipline gets lighter. Regret gets crushing. Regret is not loud at first. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It shows up in small moments when you think about what you could have done differently, the opportunity you didn't take, the habit you meant to build, the promise you made to yourself and quietly broke. Each moment feels manageable, but regret stacks. And unlike discipline, it doesn't build strength. It drains it. Discipline hurts once. Regret hurts repeatedly. Discipline asks for effort in the present. Regret makes you relive the past. That's the real cost. You can't go back and fix missed chances, but you can feel their weight again and again. People don't break under pressure. They break under the slow accumulation of unfulfilled potential. Regret grows when time passes and excuses expire. When you're young, there's always later. Later to start, later to change, later to take things seriously. But later has a way of disappearing. One day you look around and realize time has been moving whether you are ready or not. And in that moment, regret becomes sharp because you can finally see the distance between where you are and where you could have been. Discipline doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees self-respect. Regret guarantees neither. It leaves you questioning your choices, doubting your courage, wondering why you didn't act when you had the chance. That questioning is exhausting. It wears down confidence and steals joy from the present. What makes regret especially heavy is that it's often silent. You can be surrounded by people and still feel it. You can be busy and still carry it. It doesn't need attention to exist. It waits. And the longer you ignore it, the stronger it becomes. Discipline, on the other hand, creates momentum. It gives you evidence. Every day you show up, you collect proof that you're capable of effort. That proof quiets doubt. It stabilizes your identity. You stop wondering what might have been and start focusing on what you're building. Regret feeds on avoidance. Discipline feeds on action. Even imperfect action weakens regret's grip. Starting late is still better than never starting. The pain of beginning fades. The pain of never beginning doesn't. There's a cruel trick regret plays. It convinces you that because you've wasted time, it's too late to change. That lie keeps people stuck. Discipline doesn't care about the past. It only asks what you'll do next. The moment you act, regret loses some of its power. The moment you commit, it starts to shrink. Imagine, carrying regret for years, unspoken, unresolved. It changes how you see yourself. It makes you cautious, hesitant, afraid to try again. Discipline does the opposite. It rebuilds trust with yourself. It gives you the courage to keep going even after failure. Discipline is heavy at the start because it's unfamiliar. Regret is heavy at the end because it's final. One is temporary. The other can last a lifetime. That's the trade you're making every day, whether you acknowledge it or not. The choice isn't between comfort and discomfort. It's between discomfort now or discomfort later. Between effort today or regret tomorrow. And the longer you delay choosing discipline, the heavier regret becomes. At some point, you have to decide which weight you're willing to carry. The weight that builds you or the weight that breaks you. Choose discipline before regret chooses you.